New York One has obtained a copy of the resume that Santos submitted to the Nassau GOP for the vetting process. It says he earned a nearly perfect GPA at a college he did not attend. And their frustration, the devastation is palpable here, but there's also a steely determination. This has been a contentious incumbent-on-incumbent primary with a dark horse challenger. She has an additional advantage of being boosted by the momentum that Lee Zeldin is now seeing at the top of the ticket. Among their demands are not just better pay and better benefits, but as you hear from this chant, safer staffing levels. It's a tactic and one that could be effective. She doesn't need to engage him necessarily. He's not a threat necessarily. It took 15 ballots, and Kevin McCarthy can now call himself the 55th Speaker. It was such a protracted, historically so, process. Well, this served as the mayor's self-assessment of sorts of his year in public safety. He was, of course, elected to office on a platform of driving down crime. We have no indication from Congressman-elect George Santos that he plans on doing anything other than being sworn in on Tuesday. And he's been trying to cast himself as common sense and his Democratic rival as the extremist one. And here he is scrubbing all the extremist language from his campaign website. It seems that Staten Island, at least this part of the 11th Congressional District, is going to turn out very big for the Republican Party. Nadler won with the support of his very loyal base here on the Upper West Side.
Shame! 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 Shame!
Outside the Nassau County Courthouse Thursday, 5 days before George Santos was set to take a seat in Congress, a rally condemning him for lying about his background.
What we've been through is the same as victims of a Ponzi scheme.
Santos earlier this week sought to characterize the fabrications in his backstory as embellishing parts of his resume. The Republican won election last month to represent parts of Queens and Nassau County.
But Congressman-elect, if you don't resign, I want you to take a look at the people around me. Many of them your own constituents. Because in 2 years, these are the same people that will ensure that you never win another election in your life.
Where Santos went to school and worked, whether he is Jewish, whether he had family who fled the Holocaust, whether he had employees who died in the Pulse shooting, and much more are apparent lies. Prosecutors at the county, state, and federal levels are now looking into Santos, including how, according to filings, he amassed sudden wealth and was able to pump $700,000 into his campaign. On Thursday, a spokesperson for Queens District Attorney Melinda Katz told New York One the office is reviewing whether any potential crimes were committed by Santos in the jurisdiction.
Follow that money! Follow that money!
Santos has said he made a mistake but denied criminal wrongdoing.
I'm not a fraud. I'm not a fake. I didn't materialize from thin air.
Though Republican House leadership has yet to speak out on the incoming member, some of Santos's fellow GOP congressmen-elect from New York are weighing in. Nick LaLota urging a House Ethics Committee probe, and Mike Lawler urging Santos to cooperate in any investigation. Democrats, including Congressman-elect Dan Goldman, want prosecutors to consider potential campaign finance fraud. At the rally Thursday, there was particular dismay and disgust that Santos had portrayed himself as Jewish.
Mr. Santos' lies are insulting and demeaning to every child of a Holocaust survivor. How do I know? Because I am a child of a Holocaust survivor.
Emily Ngo, New York One.
I've had Democrats come up to me that tell me this is the first time they're voting Republican.
Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis tells New York One she believes she'll win re-election with a larger margin than when she last faced Max Rose 2 years ago, helped by right-leaning Democrats in New York City's only swing House district.
This is the last bastion of conservatism in the city of New York.
Between midterm election precedent and redrawn district boundaries, the odds do favor Republicans.
Oh, yeah? I'm not worried about them for a second, okay? We're building an incredible campaign.
Among Rose's advantages, being widely recognized on Staten Island and in southern Brooklyn, having served the district before Malliotakis.
Could I give you a hug?
Oh, my God, of course you can.
And being widely recognized as a veteran of the armed forces.
Thanks again for your comments.
Go Navy.
Oh, come on. Go Army.
He touts to New York One his independence from his party.
I want to see a time where, very soon, where it's not Biden running, it's not Trump running. We need a new generation of leadership.
Malliotakis again has Donald Trump's endorsement.
When you compare the records between President Biden and President Trump, people want to have the economy that we had. They want to have the gas prices that we had. They want to have the border security that we had.
The incumbent, who has visited the U.S.-Mexican border, says she hears from constituents that inflation and crime are their top concerns.
People do not feel safe in New York City because of the radical bail laws, because of the rhetoric coming out of some of the left-wing politicians, the lack of support for our law enforcement.
Rose is also critical of state bail reform laws and calls first responders heroes. but he seeks, like other Democrats in battleground districts, to draw attention to the fight for abortion rights.
And we're at this moment where abortion is being banned in states, and we see the Republican Party pushing a nationwide abortion ban as one of the pillars of their policy agenda.
Malliotakis explains her position this way.
I certainly want to preserve women's right to have for exceptions like life of the mother and rape and incest.
And while Rose is a tireless campaigner, Malliotakis has a very devoted base.
You putting signs up? What are you doing?
Everything.
Okay.
Whatever you need.
Housing court in the Bronx is a crush of New Yorkers desperately fighting eviction and deplorable living conditions.
There's like rodents running around, there's roaches.
And New Yorkers fighting to collect the rent they need amid rising interest and other expenses.
Con Edison, DEP, Wi-Fi, they all keep coming with bills, and we must pay them no matter what.
The tension in these halls feels a world away from the higher-end living that has helped make for skyrocketing rents around the city. In an interconnected New York, market forces and policy, profit and politics all play a role in creating this crisis of affordability, at the root of which is supply not meeting demand, decade over decade.
In 2010, the Department of City Planning estimated that by 2030, we were going to reach a population of 8.8 million people. It's 2022. We have hit that benchmark 10 years earlier. However, when you look at housing production, we are at least 10 years behind.
About 560,000 apartments must be built by 2030 to accommodate population growth, according to a Real Estate Board of New York report. When it comes to affordable housing, though 29,408 such units were in the pipeline in fiscal year 2021, the mayor's management report revealed that in the last fiscal year, just 16,042 were begun. And what's affordable is relative. In Manhattan, the average rent was $4,094 in August 2021. But by August of this year, it had risen to $5,246, according to a Douglas Elliman report.
One of the predictions during COVID was that actually the city would die, that people would not want to be here anymore. And we've seen the opposite. We've actually seen people return. And then we also saw rents really, extraordinarily spike as a result of that return.
In a city where home ownership or even market rate housing is out of reach for so many, protecting tenants, especially those one paycheck away from homelessness, is a priority.
We're not building enough housing to meet the people who to meet the needs of people who want to live here, and the people who that harms the most are people who are living in unprotected housing, who are low income and can't afford their rent increases.
So will this be New York's moment of housing reckoning? After all, according to a city survey, the vacancy rate for apartments renting for under $1,500 is 0.9%.
That's functionally zero. So what are you going to be able to find? It's somewhat of our default, but it's getting exacerbated. It's getting a little worse. The challenges are getting greater, and they require much larger scale solutions.